Space is dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It's a Tuesday, which means we are taking your hashtag Tuesday thoughts on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. Join the conversation with us there. If you guys who listen on the podcast, by the way, if you have other ways you want to interact with the show, because I've talked to different people who say they don't do the Twitter thing. They're not Twitter folks. I'm definitely a Twitter junkie, so I'm guilty as charged there. But if you're not a Twitter person and you maybe would chime in on Facebook, or if there's another way, or Instagram, whatever works for you, give us a heads up. We want to include everybody. And like I've always said, if you have Tuesday thoughts after the fact or Wall Pass Wednesday questions ahead of time, throw them at us. We will try to include every bit of engagement with you guys as we can. Today, we have thoughts on the Concacaf Champions League draw that happened last night. It did happen. 2-day NA was not up to speed on it, or Concacaf was not up to speed on it, or something. We're going to try to get to the bottom of this. I have no idea why, when they advertised it was going to be on 2-day NA, we got a crazy sports show that was half America's Funniest Home Videos instead. Don't know. But it did happen, and Atlanta United is drawn with Motagua of Honduras, and we will talk about Motagua. We'll talk about the draw as a whole, who got a difficult draw, who got a manageable draw, maybe some upsets to look at. We'll get into all that this morning. There's lots of news around Major League Soccer as well, rumors to go along with it, plenty of stuff to talk about on a Tuesday. Jason Longshore, John Nelson with you this morning. And John, we were hanging out at the Brewhouse Cafe last night watching this draw unfold, and Atlanta, for a round of 16 opponent, got one of the 4 or 5 that we were comfortable with going in.
Yeah, and you look at Motagua, and that was, when we were going backwards and going, okay, so we know the 1 through 8 in pot 1. We're going through 9 through 16 in pot 2, and Motagua was toward the bottom. They were not the bottom. That was Portmore, but they were one of those teams that you could sit there and say, yes, you should be able to take care of business in the round of 16. So, it's now up to getting ready, getting trained, and heading down to Honduras, because in your mini bracket, you get the winner of Club America and Comunicaciones in the round of 8, and we kind of know where that one's heading, barring something unforeseen.
Yeah, that's you'll have a couple of MLS games under your belt. You'll have a couple of Champions League games under your belt by that point. I mean, that is what it is. But January 11th, training camp opens, and now you know the opponent. I mean, when you compare last year's draw with Herediano to this one, it was tougher last year. Herediano was coming off of a CONCACAF League run. They won the Costa Rican League in the Apertura in the second half of 2018 going into 2019. They were in a much stronger position. Motagua comes into this after a 9-5-4 year in Honduras in the 2019 Apertura. They did not get to force a final in Honduras' playoff system that has a group stage with the top 5 after the regular season. Olympia swept both. And we talked about it a lot yesterday. Olympia was the potential upset special that I had in mind, even more so maybe than a Saprissa, because Saprissa is not what they've been in the past. But Motagua finishing 3rd in Honduras coming into this, you feel like this is a manageable fixture. The trip down there is not going to be easy. You're playing on a pitch that, I watched Olympia play on it on Sunday when they clinched the Honduran League title, and it's not the best. It's kind of bumpy. It's a little chunky. It has 2 teams who play on it. Olympia and Motagua share it. I'll be curious to see how they do the scheduling for CONCACAF with that in mind. It's not going to be ideal. It's going to be difficult. Anytime you go to Central America against any level of competition, there are difficulties that come with that you have to be prepared for. The Costa Rican trip last year will end up being different than this one, but it will help you prepare with the challenges of playing in CONCACAF because, John, you've seen it over the years. You have a different style of refereeing in CONCACAF, things that, are allowed, gamesmanship is allowed in CONCACAF matches where maybe it wouldn't be in MLS, things that you can get away with in MLS, are not really allowed by CONCACAF referees. You're going to get the dark arts and all the different kinds of things that come into it. It's a challenge, no matter who the opponent is.
No doubt. And last year was that adjustment for Atlanta United. And there were some of the players who knew about it going in, had that experience, at least, in a mental sense, and knew what they were getting into. And it was an education for the others. And making the run that they did, you take that information, you apply it to this year. And I don't think for 1/2 second that Motagua / Olympia are going to care what that pitch is, reinforcing Nick Alifi's point from last night. They're not going to care what that pitch looks like, feels like, sounds like, doesn't matter. Because when Seattle come and play Olympia, when Atlanta United go and play Motagua, that is part of the, pardon the pun, home field advantage when it comes to this kind of a competition. And you're going to do whatever you can to try to come up with some kind of an advantage and have the United States team or the MLS side go on the road and make it as difficult as humanly possible for them to persevere. And that's just a part of the intangibles in all of this. So, it's just part of the learning process, and part of the acceptance of being in a competition like this is that you're going to have to prepare for a bunch of different variables that you don't normally have in your league competition.
It's just something you deal with. I mean, I think sometimes it gets overblown a little bit. It's just, you got to keep your head and just play and do what you do because you're a better team. I mean, the talent level between the two teams, it's a very wide gap between the third place team in Honduras and the third place team in Major League Soccer. And that's where Atlanta United finished last year. It's a completely different world. You're talking about player values, you're talking about salaries, you're talking about just level of play, far different between Atlanta United and Motagua. But we see it in any competition. Upsets do happen, and especially where you're dealing with this situation where it's a home and away. You have to deal with a trip. You have to deal with a team coming in. If they're able to get a win in the first leg, they're going to come in, and I don't think they're going to be naive like Herediano was. I think they're going to come in, and they're going to be very defensive and sit back and just frustrate. They're comfortable playing in that style. Atlanta United needs to manage the first leg, win the home leg. And manage the first leg could end up being a win, could end up being a comfortable win. Then that home leg is even more comfortable. You might have to battle, but you've got to get out of there in a comfortable position to come back home and do what you do. And that's where you're at. We'll be keeping an eye on Motagua and what changes they could be making as they prepare for this, because this is a huge opportunity for them. They come in since the beginning of November, because you have to remember how a lot of these leagues run. It's an Apertura and a Clausura, and there's a summer break, and they go until right around now is when the Apertura season ends. Honduras just ended. Others are in the playoffs right now. But since the beginning of November, Motagua only won 3 times. They lost twice, and they drew 3 times. So this is not the historic level that Motagua generally is at. When you look at the Honduran game, there's 3 heavyweights in the club game. It's Olympia, it's Motagua, and it's Marathon. Marathon did not qualify this time around. Olympia and Motagua did. Motagua in the pentagonal, which is the way they do their final series. So you have your Apertura, and then you have the top 5 do a group stage. If the winner of the Apertura wins that group stage playoff, they're the champion. They've won both stages. If somebody else wins the 5-team playoff, the pentagonal, then you have a final between the 2 winners of the stages. Olympia swept both. Motagua did have a pretty good pentagonal where they won 3 times, and they matched Olympia, but Olympia had a better goal differential, and that's why they end up winning the title. And Motagua has to plan for next time around and plan for this. This is a team and a club that has been here before. They were in the 2018 Concacaf Champions League, and then when you go back to the group stage era, they were in the 2010-11, the 2011-12, the 2015-16. You look at some of their results in previous Champions Leagues. They earned a draw at home with Club America in 2015. They earned a draw at home with Tijuana in 2018. So, they can make life difficult for you, but those are their big results in CONCACAF Champions League. I look at it compared to last year. This is an easier round of 16 opponent. Now, if you get past it, and if Club America gets past Comunicaciones, which I would expect them to do so, then you're setting up maybe an even bigger heavyweight battle in the quarterfinals, just because these teams have a match under their belts. And Atlanta United walked away with a trophy at the end of it. Now you're going to have that rematch over 2 legs. If both teams take care of business in the round of 16, and they should, you're going to have a rematch over 2 legs that will be epic for both clubs and epic for CONCACAF as a whole. This is why this competition is a fun one, because if you get Atlanta United and Club America in the quarterfinals, everybody in North America, Central America, I think even in South America, because Club America is a known brand in this hemisphere, this will be one that everybody will be keeping up with. It's that big because it's 2 large clubs.
And the sidebar, taking a personal moment, the boss has already said if this does happen and it gets to the round of 8, she's actually looking forward to going to see something in Azteca. And it should be on everyone's bucket list when it comes to seeing an event. And for an event that would include Atlanta United, possibly in the round of 8, in a hemispheric tournament that would be as big a deal as it is, including the history from Campeones Cup. The word that you've used a lot in various situations is massive. And for me, this would be a massive display of where Atlanta United is going, where they want to go, where Club America is, and what they want to maintain. So got to get through the opening round first, but it is definitely underlined, exclamated, italicized, and bold-faced if Atlanta United and Club America were to pair up in the round of 8.
You're talking about 2 of the biggest clubs in this part of the world, period. And there are others who are in that conversation. It's not a 1-2 and nobody else, but Atlanta United, Club America, in 2 of the biggest cities, 2 of the biggest clubs, and they have a little bit of history, and that adds to this. It's not even like last year with Monterrey, which was a big deal because they'd never played. Now you've got a match, a competitive match under your belt. It wasn't a friendly in the Campeones Cup. You've got some history to play off of. That will only add to the spice level of a quarterfinal CONCACAF Champions League matchup if you get there. It was an interesting draw last night. I mean, with 16 teams, you're going to get, you're going to get a couple tough matchups. You're going to get a couple easy matchups. But in general, I think you're set up for a very compelling CONCACAF Champions League tournament this time around. And I think MLS teams have to go into this brave and feel like they can win this thing just like Club America, just like Cruz Azul, just like Tigres can. They can do damage. And I think the days of MLS coming into this tournament happy to be here have to end. Now, Montreal's in a different position than others because of, 1, how they qualify, and 2, their situation. I think even New York City's in a little bit different situation. But Seattle, even though they're going to have to remake their roster a bit, they're coming in as the champs. LAFC's coming in as a Supporter Shield winners and a team that everybody is looking to perform well. And we know Atlanta United's pedigree at this point. None of them can come in and be afraid. So you look at the matchups. Atlanta United, Motagua, Club America, Comunicaciones, winners battle in the quarterfinals. Cruz Azul, Portmore United. I think Cruz Azul probably got the kindest draw here because Portmore was the weakest team in current form coming into this. They're in 7th place in the Jamaican League out of 12 right now. So Cruz Azul should be able to walk through that one. They would face the winner of LAFC and León. León was the team that nobody wanted out of Pot 2. LAFC gets them. It's not going to be an easy home and away for the black and gold. Other side of the bracket, Tigres and Alianza of El Salvador. Tricky. Alianza showed last year that they can make life difficult for top teams. Monterrey had to sweat to get through Alianza. I think Tigres will do it, but they won't overlook Alianza after what happened to their crosstown rivals last year. And then the winner of that series plays the winner of New York City and San Carlos of Costa Rica. San Carlos is the team, even outside of Portmore, because Portmore has a good number of league titles in Jamaica, even though they're not an old club. San Carlos has one. They've only won one title in Costa Rican history. This is a team that was in the 2nd division in 2017. So they've never been in anything like this. New York City needed a comfortable series to get their feet wet here. They got it, and they should be able to get through San Carlos with little trouble. The other side of it's very interesting with Seattle and Olympia, Montreal, and Saprissa. Seattle's a favorite, and Seattle, depending on what they do in the transfer market and what kind of roster they have in mid-February, they're a better team than Olympia. They should be a better team than Olympia. But Olympia is the one that comes in really good form after what they did in Honduras and winning the title, winning the Apertura, winning the playoff format. Very strong team. They're not as old as some of the other teams. I think what you're going to see when you look across the Central American teams in this competition is you have a lot of veteran players, a lot of experienced players, but the physicality that MLS brings, the speed, the pace of play, they're going to struggle with that at times. Olympia is not necessarily that kind of team. They'll be able to deal with it a little bit better. They'll give Seattle a run. The other one, Saprissa is not as strong as they have been in the past, and they're losing one of their top players to Nashville SC and Randall Leal. They could be losing Ugalde, their 17-year-old forward. You take those two players away from a team that finished 2nd in the Costa Rican League, knocked out in the semifinals. You would think, okay, this isn't one of Saprissa's greatest opportunities to pull an upset, but they're going to get Montreal, who is going to be playing under Thierry Henry for the first time ever in competition in these matches. And a Montreal team that didn't play well in MLS last year. Wilmer Cabrera carried them to a cup title that got them here. And a team that has a lot of question marks in what they're going to look like at that stage. So Saprissa's eyes had to light up because they needed a little bit of help in the draw, and they got it. And this is a toss-up series. This and LAFC and León are probably the two biggest toss-ups in the round of 16.
I think if you look at each of the sides, there's intrigue for different reasons on both. You look at the left-hand side, Atlanta United, Club America, Cruz Azul, LAFC, León. Whoever gets through those matchups will have definitely earned it to get to the last match to determine a title. On the right-hand side, you mentioned Seattle, Olympia, Montreal, Saprissa. For me, that is the mini bracket where you could legitimately have the two teams that have come out of Pot 2 take out the teams out of Pot 1 for the reasons that we talked about last night and for what we've talked about this morning. So, how does NYCFC respond their first time in? We know it's San Carlos. I'm looking at that in combination with possibly taking on Tigres in the round of 8. So each side has its own storylines and its differences that will get to a championship, but there's definite intrigue on both sides for different reasons.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun competition. There's a lot of storylines to talk about, and we will keep an eye on all the different teams in Central America. San Carlos, for example, they were knocked out in the semifinal round of the Costa Rican playoffs, and they announced that they're starting their preseason today. for next season. And the Costa Rican League season will start very early in January. So it's a very short break for them between the Apertura and the Clausura. They're going to hit the ground running, and they're going to need to bolster their squad a little bit. And that's a big thing to keep in mind here. We saw it with Herediano. We will see it with other clubs too, is now that you know your draws, you're going to see these teams that have the opportunity to play in CONCACAF Champions League go out and try to add some talent, especially veteran talent that maybe has played in this competition before, maybe understands the challenges of it. So keep an eye on some of the acquisitions that can happen here. I'll be curious to see what Motagua does between now and when Atlanta United sees them. Saprissa is one that I'm really looking at because they have to feel like they can win that series. But if you lose your top two young talents, you've got to replace them. Otherwise you're relying on older players that can only take you so far in these types of matchups. So lots of storylines, lots of things to keep an eye on. We'll be talking a lot of CONCACAF Champions League between now and when it kicks off in mid-February. If you guys have Tuesday thoughts about CONCACAF Champions League, send them in on Twitter at SoccerDownHere. Let us know what you're thinking this morning. We'll get into some of that after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, December 10th. Getting ready for CONCACAF Champions League. Getting ready for the Mercado de Pases. If you have not followed us in an off-season before, get ready for all of the silly season and the market of passes that happens around the world. That is the transfer window in your Spanish-speaking countries. The Mercado del Pases, because it is an active mercado. It's already active with bartering and things happening in the mercado, and it's only going to continue to ramp up. Now that the CONCACAF teams know who they're facing in this competition, it feels like the 2020 season is even closer, and it feels like you have things that you're pointing towards. You're not going to overlook Motagua in the round of 16 if you're Atlanta United, but you've got to look ahead and say, oh boy, here we go. This gets real really fast with a very serious match potentially against Club America. And we talked about it last night on our reaction show / live show / what is going on with 2-Day NA and CONCACAF and all of this stuff show. But the early season in MLS could not have worked out better for Atlanta United.
Glad you broke this down last night.
It is so perfect in dealing with this because you're going to get your first 2 competitive games of the year against Motagua. Then, and I've seen stuff out of Honduras saying that the games are going to be on the Wednesdays in those windows of days. That is not confirmed. That has not been confirmed. Wait for Atlanta United to make an official announcement. But I don't see any way that second leg is going to be on Thursday because Atlanta United plays on Saturday, the 29th. I think the latest it will be the Wednesday, the 26th. It could be the Tuesday, the 25th. Just stay tuned on all of that. But you get those 2 games with Motagua, then you go to Nashville, short road game against a brand new team, should make you feel pretty good. Then you have a week with no CONCACAF, if that's all assuming you advance. You have a week with no CONCACAF. You're home against Cincinnati, second-year team, one of the worst teams in the league last year. Yes, we know what happened last year, but it's a manageable league match to deal with. Then you go into Club America in the midweek. So you've got 2 league matches that will fall in between Motagua and Club America if you advance past Motagua. And those 2 league matches are both manageable matches. And you're in a different position than you were last year where Frank de Boer is still getting to know his squad. And he still had injuries to deal with, first with Franco Escobar, then with George Bello, that he had to kind of navigate on the fly as he's getting to know this group. A little bit harder for him to rotate even a few different pieces in those early league matches. And you had the Julian Gressel ankle injury, remember, that affected him playing in Monterrey in that first leg. Now, you've got a year under your belt. Now, I think you have a deeper squad. Now, you have to avoid the injury bug in preseason. Every club has to do that. But if you are at full strength, you're going to have a much greater ability to give some guys time off over those early 2 league games without potentially sacrificing points to prepare for Club America. It's perfect. I mean, you couldn't ask for it any better. And then we'll see when the full schedule comes out. We don't know what's on Atlanta United's schedule in between the Club America legs. Last year, remember, they had a bye early in the season that would have fallen, I think, between the semifinal legs if they had gotten there. If you have a bye between the Club America legs, you're in a perfect position here. You're in an absolutely perfect position. And we have seen teams reschedule games to create that scenario. So Atlanta United could not ask for a better schedule of what we know so far to deal with the challenges of CONCACAF.
A couple of folks have chimed in this morning, and you've pretty much addressed the points, but let me just go over them to see if you've missed anything in your own mind here. Michael Head wanted to know exact dates and locations of the first round. Has that been determined? Haven't seen anything as of yet.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
No, Michael Head just wanted to know if the exact dates and locations of the first round have been determined. The answer is no.
Yeah, no, we don't have any of that just yet. So stay tuned. Now that matchups are announced, the one thing that's tricky involving Atlanta United is you're facing a team that shares a stadium with a team in the competition. Olimpia and Motagua both play at the Estadio Nacional. So I'm wondering if potentially legs get flipped because of that. Otherwise, you could see a scenario where Olimpia plays one night, Motagua plays the next, or maybe there's a day in between. That pitch is going to struggle if that's the case. Now, I again, like I talked about with the way the schedule falls, I don't think Atlanta United Motagua does what happened last year where they played on both of the Thursdays. They're not going to play the second leg on Thursday when they have a league match on Saturday. So, Atlanta United should get the first game with Motagua at the stadium if both teams are playing in the same week at that stadium, Motagua and Olimpia. That helps a little bit with the field holding up. It might be even worse the next day, and that's, hoping you have good weather and all that. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. The scheduling will be a challenge for Seattle Olympia and Atlanta Motagua because of the shared stadium.
And then Swixter wants to know how we're feeling that our first two competitive matches are 2020 or our Concacaf Champions League away and home. Any insights into when or how the club will be doing preseason prep?
Well, I mean, we know they can start January 11th. They haven't announced anything as of yet. We know per the, I believe it was the teleconference with Frank de Boer and Carlos Bocanegra at the end of the option pickup series of time in late November, that they will be headed to Guadalajara for part of their preseason. We don't have details on that. I wouldn't be surprised if they play more matches and maybe more, they're not going to be competitive matches, but matches in a competitive setting. Because remember last year, it was a lot of behind closed door stuff. You had the one match that was behind closed doors, but we did the stream for Tijuana, and it wasn't Tijuana's first team, with a few exceptions. I think you're going to see more higher level competition to prepare. That's not always easy to do. I mean, it sounds great. It's like, oh, yeah, just do that. No problem. Well, I mean, who are you going to play? Because teams are, Mexican teams, Central American teams are in season. So are you going to be able to get them in a midweek game where they're going to play their regulars for a while to give you a good run? Maybe, maybe not. So, who are you going to play that's going to give you that good test? That's the challenge here. It's not easy to create that schedule to do it, but I think they will try to play more games in preseason. That was something that last year, and I totally get it in Frank de Boer's first training camp. You've got work to do to get to know this group. Maybe you don't want to play games in front of the public just yet. Maybe you want to work behind closed doors at that point. It's a different scenario this year. And I think if you can find the right kinds of opponents, more preseason matches could help you be just a little bit further along by the time you hit the field against Motagua.
Quick shout out this morning to Chris Kilroy, who very, very early Eastern time said, Buongiorno da Milano. He says, not quite in. He's in Rome connecting to Milan for Inter and Barca this evening, and he's listening this afternoon local time. Looking forward to our analysis of the Champions draw.
Excellent. Go ahead and tweet at Nick Alifi, and maybe he can help you out with a couple of places to go.
Yes.
He knows everybody, so the Garlic Bread Warlord will take care of you.
Bartimus Prime, after the draw last night, #hot take on the #SCCL 2020 draw. Atlanta United's half of the bracket is the toughest. Two favorites from the U.S. plus two of the best teams in tourney history. #CCL Fever.
That's not a hot take, Bart. That's like a that's like when you get the wings that say they're super spicy and they're advertised, and it's like, we have ghost peppers in our wing sauce, and it's not. It's like bell peppers. It's not spicy. You think it's going to be spicy. It's not spicy. You're completely correct. It's Atlanta and LAFC, the two heavyweights of MLS right now, and Seattle will take exception to that, and it's completely understandable. But the two teams that everybody's looking at to lead the way in Major League Soccer in this competition are Atlanta and LAFC, and they're in the half of the bracket with Club America, who is Club America, and Cruz Azul, who has had great success in this competition and takes it very, very seriously, even coming off of a not so great season. And they're going to be, I think, aggressive going into the Mercado del Pases to try to upgrade their squad, because I thought Tigres was the more dangerous Mexican team between Tigres and Cruz Azul. But Cruz Azul will not be the Cruz Azul that we saw in the Apertura by the time they get to February. They're going to be active in the market to upgrade their squad. So, two Mexican heavyweights, two American heavyweights in this half of the bracket. The other half has Tigres, and Tigres has to be very happy about what they have in front of them, because the MLS teams are a New York City that doesn't have a manager right now, and a good squad, but they've never been here before. Seattle Sounders, who have a lot of questions about the squad and haven't been great in CONCACAF in the past. A Montreal-Saprissa matchup that's a toss-up. And, yeah, you have a tricky series with Alianza. You will have a tricky matchup with NYC if they get past San Carlos, as they should. But Tigres is the clear favorite on the other side. The bracket, the half of the bracket that Atlanta is in, Atlanta could win that bracket. Club America could win that bracket. Cruz Azul could win that bracket. LAFC could win that bracket. León maybe could win that bracket. The thing about León is they're going to be losing their top scorer, Macias, who's headed back to Chivas. He was on loan with Club León. León tried to sign him on a permanent. He turned it down and is going back to Chivas. And big reason why he's going back to Chivas is Alan Pulido, their leading scorer, Golden Boot winner in Liga MX this season, is likely coming to MLS. And now you're getting reports out of 2DN that he could be headed to Kansas City, which would be a bold move from Kansas City, but it lines up. Remember, Peter Vermes said, and the ownership said, they're going to raise their investment level here. You're going to have to get an Alan Pulido. And he would be that number 9 that they have not really had since Dom Dwyer. So Pulido leaves. That affects León because Chivas is going to bring Macias back into that team, and now León has to go find another goal scorer. They're also potentially going to lose another one of their top scorers who is on loan, Ismael Sosa, who's on loan from Pachuca until the end of the year. Haven't seen an update on him just yet. He scored 8 goals in the Apertura this season. So, the player for León that people will remember, Joel Campbell, Costa Rican forward from Arsenal in the past.
Yes.
He is on loan from Frosinone in Italy, played in 16 matches, did not score a goal for León. The other player that people will remember from León is William Yarbrough, the American goalkeeper, 30 years old, who had a couple chances to maybe break into the national team pool. Didn't. He's been at León for a long, long time. Backup now, though. He only played twice in the Apertura. But León, right now, you're leaning on a 31-year-old Ecuadorian winger, Angel Mena, as your leading scorer that's coming back with 8 goals. You've got a lot of holes to fill. So LAFC, even though they got a tough draw, they're the favorite in that to me.
Fourcard Ahmed reminds us of a tweet that he posted 5 days ago saying that his CONCACAF conspiracy theory is Atlanta United and Club America, round 2 of the bracket. I'm sure Club America wants a shot at Atlanta at El Azteca, and he says, do you believe in the law of attraction? Is it 2020 yet?
I know. I knew it was coming. All the black helicopters are really spinning around CONCACAF these days, and the tinfoil hats are out, and I get it. I understand. I don't know. I trust DeMarcus Beasley. He showed the open hand before he drew the ball out. There's no gimmickry going on there.
We don't know the temperature of the elements inside.
You are casting aspersions on DeMarcus Beasley when you say that. That's somewhere I'm not going. I'm not going there.
I wasn't casting aspersions on DeMarcus Beasley and his capability to take a right hand and place it into a fishbowl.
You did, though. You were saying that there are temperatures of the balls that are in there, and you're supposed to be picking certain ones, and he's the one picking it. So, no, I'm not casting aspersions on DeMarcus Beasley. Do not listen to this nonsense, DeMarcus Beasley. Luck happens sometimes, and that's what happened. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Nathan Pugh with a couple of thoughts this morning. We'll take them one at a time.
Okay.
First, the SDH fam is knowledgeable and rational. Beg your friends to stay calm and to enjoy the footy and success. Yes, the draw is rough, but winning Concacaf Champions League with the cap and overall better Mexican teams would be tough regardless.
Yeah, I mean, the competition's tough. No matter, last year you had Tigres and Monterrey in this. This year you don't have Monterrey after they won the thing, but you get, Club America and Cruz Azul and Tigres. No matter what happens year after year, this is going to be a difficult competition to win. It is. It's what it is. It's the challenge. It's why it hasn't happened yet in this current format. It's difficult. So in terms of like freaking out about the draw, don't. You could have gotten a matchup, in my opinion.
You could have been LAFC.
Well, yeah, but even that, you shouldn't be freaking out. Like, you could have gotten Leon, you could have gotten Olympia, you could have gotten Saprissa, which even, as we talked about last night, I'm not as high on Saprissa as, I have been in the past, but you could have gotten any of those and they would have been more difficult than Motagua. You could have been drawn up against Tigres or Cruz Azul, and you would have had challenges in the next round. Club America, honestly, you've beaten them before. That should give you some confidence as opposed to being afraid of it. Yeah, you're going to have to go to the Estadio Azteca. Happens. Toronto knocked out Club America in the 2018 Champions League and played at the Estadio Azteca, and they advanced to the final that year. So it can be done. It's not impossible. And Atlanta United, in my opinion, will feel good about playing Club America because they've beaten them before.
Point 2 from Nathan. The footy is good now. It can always be worse, e.g. Everton and Orlando, so enjoy it. Tell the casual fans that footy is supposed to be fun, played in historic and cool stadiums. Enjoy Estadio Azteca if we make it.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about it for me. I mean, even the match with Motagua at the Estadio Nacional in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, that's cool. Like, that's just a cool trip. I mean, it's a different kind of matchup and a different kind of trip than you had last year with Herediano, which was in a much smaller stadium, but an older venue. Like, that stuff, it feels different. Like, you can feel the game in a venue like that with the history of it. Now you take the Estadio Azteca and you take that history and you take all those moments that you've seen, and whether it was the U.S. national team, whether it was Toronto, whether it was another match, whether it was a World Cup final, Diego Maradona lifted the World Cup in that venue. Pelé lifted the World Cup in that venue. That's where Atlanta United has the potential to play a competitive match in 2020. That's special. This is a venue that's hosted 2 World Cup finals. I don't think there's another one of those in the world. I have to double check on that. I think they are the only one that's hosted 2 World Cup finals. And even beyond that, just all the different moments of American soccer that you think about in that venue. Very cool to have that opportunity. And that's what these competitions are all about.
Point 3 from Nathan. It says, make MBS a cauldron of animosity and anger towards any opponent, but enjoy the occasion. Playing footy is about winning. Watching footy is about passing the time and being entertained with a drink and some friends. # Tuesday Thoughts.
Yeah, and I mean, in the venue, in the home venue, and especially in this, I think now, you saw what it was like with the Campeones Cup. And look, I know, and I don't know if everybody grasps this in the same way, but something I noticed when I showed up in the Gulch that day was how many people that, I've known or I've seen in the Gulch and don't know, but I've seen them over the years walking through the Gulch that are Atlanta United fans. But they're also Club America fans. And they've been Club America fans longer than Atlanta United's existed. You have a lot of people in that situation. You have far more people in that situation than you would think. That adds to just the intrigue of this one. But you're also going to have plenty of people who are not in Atlanta and not, from Atlanta and don't care about Atlanta United, who are going to come to this match because it's a big deal, because they're Club America fans, because Club America has a huge fan base in the United States, Mexico too, but in the United States especially. They are one of the big boys of the Mexican game. So that match will be raucous, because now that you've had a Campeones Cup that, look, a lot of people came into that and didn't really know what to expect. Players, fans, clubs, everything. Well, you know exactly what to expect here. This is legit. This is not for fun. This is going to be a very intense atmosphere, and it's going to be not a split crowd. because I think the Atlanta United fans understand now what this rivalry is. And I think Campeones Cup, again, people didn't know what the lineup was going to look like. People didn't know how serious it was going to be. That's not going to happen here. So it's not going to be a split crowd, but there will be a noticeable Club America contingent, and they will be very loud. And that's going to be one where if you have to not talk for a couple days before that, and you have to plan not to be able to talk after it, bring it. Because it's going to be needed in that matchup. It's going to be special. It's going to be very, very exciting, and it's going to be a level of intensity. And I said it to Mike Conti at halftime of the Campeones Cup match before we knew how that thing was going to turn out. I think it was 1-1 at halftime, if I remember right. I said it to Mike that match, no matter what the result ended up being, was going to help Atlanta United raise their level, because it's a level of intensity that you don't ordinarily get in league play. I think it did. That week for me was the best week for Atlanta United all season, where they beat New York City at home, they beat Club America, and they went to Portland and played Portland off the park at Providence Park in their own building. So this is going to be a level of intensity that's even more than that. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a huge challenge, and it's going to be a very unique atmosphere at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. The match in Mexico City, there will be Atlanta United fans who go. There will be fans cheering for Atlanta United. Won't be as many as there will be Club America fans in Atlanta cheering in that match. It's just not going to happen. But both of those have the potential to be special and elevate this whole competition to something that we just haven't seen yet. It's very, very cool to hopefully be part of it. You got to take care of Motagua first. Club America's got to take care of Comunicaciones. But the potential is there for a quarterfinal series for the ages in the Concacaf Champions League with Atlanta and Club America.
Swickster this morning says that León is a sneaky good side, and I feel bad for LAFC drawing them. Atlanta's path to a CCL Finals, Motagua, Club America, León, then likely Tigres in the final, and then he shuddered on Twitter. Side note of Seattle.
I'm not as high on León. I'm just not. They're losing two of their top scorers. They were sneaky good in the Apertura where they finished second. They got to replace these two scorers for me first. And for a club like León, that's not quite as easy as a club like Cruz Azul replacing talent or adding talent. Talking about a whole different type of resource level. So I'm not as high on León. I'm not discounting LAFC getting through. LAFC is the favorite in that series for me. Now, they've got to play like it, and that's a completely valid question that I've had since the playoffs in 2018 for LAFC. They have to show they can win these games. But this is one where they should be the favorite against León. They should. I don't think León's going to be able to replace Macias and potentially Sosa with comparable talent this quickly. They're not as well resourced as the other top Mexican teams. They just don't have as much money to work with.
Swickster's side note says if Seattle/Montreal don't crap the bed, one of them should walk into the CCL semis against Tigres, and he says, might as well throw the big kids in on this one.
Seattle should. Seattle's the one who should get through. Now, they're going to need to rebuild their squad with the quickness, but Montreal-Saprissa is an absolute toss-up for me. Maybe that changes based off what both teams do in the upcoming transfer market. Montreal has some questions. They need somebody who can score goals. You know, they haven't had that. Maxi Urruti is a good, hardworking forward, but he's not scoring goals for them. Nacho Piatti, is he going to be healthy? Is he going to be ready to find that form one more time in an impact kit? We'll find out. Saprissa is going to have two young talents to replace. Do they have replacements lined up? Are they going to be able to pull them? And Saprissa, when you talk about levels, you know, Saprissa can look at the rest of the Costa Rican league, with the exception of Alajuelense, and say, oh, I like that guy. I'm going to bring him. Okay, I like him. I'm going to bring him. I'm going to go get him from Herediano. I'm going to go get him from San Carlos. I'm going to go get him from somebody else. I'm going to go get these guys because I can. Because they're Saprissa. They're the Purple Monster. So they're going to have that potential in their league to have their pick. It's also the Costa Rican league. It's not the same level. But that matchup because I don't trust Thierry Henry in his first competitive game here in dealing with Saprissa. I don't trust Saprissa to be the clear favorite either. That is the biggest toss-up. And when you look at the 4 teams in that part of the bracket, Seattle is the one that should be favored. They will be tested by Olympia, though. But Seattle should have enough talent to get through that. Nico Ladero should be a guy that can put the team on his back to get through those types of moments.
Tafka says, I know we need to move past the happy to be here mentality, which is different from what I'm about to say. But we can't forget that qualifying for Concacaf Champions League is an amazing achievement. Doing so twice in 3 years of existence is downright masterful, especially so with the size of our league now and years to come. 4 teams out of 24, out of 26, out of 28, out of 30.
Yeah, it's not quite 4 out of 24. Remember, you have to discount the Canadian teams in that side of it because the American teams qualifying for CONCACAF are not affected by the Canadian teams. So keep that in mind. It's semantics. But yeah, it's going to get harder. It's not easy to do this. There are plenty. New York City is there for the first time. They started 2 years before Atlanta United. There's plenty of clubs who have limited or no experience in CONCACAF in this league. And to do what they did last year in it, and I think a lot of people at the time were really disappointed, but you look back at the end of the competition and you took care of business against Herediano. Yeah, it was a little bumpier on the road than you would have liked in the first leg, but you handled things in a great way in the second leg and came out hitting on all cylinders. So much so that you got a manager fired. Okay. Then you get Monterrey, and the Julian Gressel ankle injury definitely affected you in that game in Monterrey. The Franco Escobar absence absolutely affected you. You played Mikey Ambrose on the right side, and Mikey played the best on the right side that he can play, but he's not a right-sided player. And you went down there, and you were in the game until the very, very end, and talked about it many, many times. That would be my biggest criticism from a coaching move is you didn't find a way to lock that game up when it got to 2-0. If you'd kept it at 2-0, it's a different contest in the second leg. But let's go to that second leg, even down 3-0. Atlanta United had a ton of chances. Monterrey did not field a weak squad. They did not just sit back. Atlanta United outplayed Monterrey for 90 minutes. They were not able to find enough goals. If you had gotten a goal in the first half and you go into that second half at 3-1 on aggregate, as wild as it was in the second half, which still put a little bit of a shock in Monterrey, it would have been a whole different level. That's why you're managing this over 180 minutes, not just 2 90-minute games. It's over the full 180. You have to look at it that way. The way Atlanta performed against the eventual champs says a lot about where Atlanta United was, even early in the season when they were not what they turned into. They still gave a great account of themselves. They should give an even better one here. And like I said off the top, I love that you're getting a team in Club America that you have beaten before. Club America is going to come into Mercedes-Benz Stadium and not have the same level of confidence that they would against other MLS teams. They're going to have that little bit of fear because of what happened last year. That helps you. And you're going to have to go and manage a match at the Estadio Azteca, and we know how challenging that can be. And I don't think this will just be your average CONCACAF match at the Estadio Azteca. If you look at, games, and you probably look at the round of 16 with Club America hosting Comunicaciones, it's not going to be a huge crowd because the Club America fan base, it's all about the big nights. It's all about the big time. It's all about the big games. Well, Atlanta United come into town for the first time will be big to them. Very big. And don't forget, and this is something to keep in mind here, and this is something that Atlanta United fans are going to want to keep an eye on. The rumors that popped off yesterday, Paul Tenorio at The Athletic, Inter Miami in negotiations to sign Club America striker Roger Martinez. You're talking about a player in Martinez, 25 years old, 15 goals, 3 assists in 43 matches across all competitions for Club America in 2019. You're talking about a player that was bought from Villarreal for around $10 million. You take him out of Club America, he goes to Miami. Maybe Atlanta United gives a high five to David Beckham on the way to the Estadio Azteca. That's going to help you a little bit. Now, Club America has the resources, and whatever resources they get from Miami, they're going to have the resources to replace him. But you're going to have, not the same continuity as you would have if you keep Roger Martinez in that team. So Atlanta, Club America is as big as it gets, and I'm with Tafka in that you've got to, and I'm past it at this point. I think honestly I was past it after the MLS Cup win. The happy to be here. This is a lot of fun. That type of stuff. Okay, it's big boy time. It's time to put the big boy pants on and get ready for this, because you want to be a top club. These are the matchups that you should crave. These are the matchups that you should be excited about, and this is what it's all about. This is what it's all about. What is because I think we're going to have to steal Wes Blankenship's line on this one. The thing about fire and your wood's wet and all that. You remember the line, John? I think we lost John. Should have known. If this doesn't get you fired up, your wood's wet is the line, I'm pretty sure. That's what this series is going to be. We totally lost John. There he went. We will find him at some point. But I'm going to take a quick break while we try to do that. Share your Tuesday thoughts with us on Twitter at Soccer Down Here, and we will get into those along with news around MLS from yesterday, rumors from around MLS from yesterday, a few other things on the agenda as well in hour number 2. We will be right back.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2. We hacked off the gremlins that had tackled John and stole him away. He's back.
Well, it was the phone. I mean,
the gremlins took your phone. Just play along.
Okay, gremlins took my phone. Gizmo.
No,
Fed him after
Gizmo's
midnight.
the good gremlin.
Fed him
Gizmo's
after
not taking
midnight.
your phone. No. Gizmo wouldn't take your phone. Spike would.
Okay. So
Spike
let's
was
see.
the bad gremlin, correct?
Shining light, feeding after midnight. What else are you not supposed to do?
Get him wet.
Get them wet. Okay. No, the phone did not get wet, and so
I need to watch Gremlins. That was a good movie. I need to watch that. It's been a long, long time since I've seen
Phoebe
Gremlins.
Cates. Phoebe Cates back then. She was strong.
Going way back.
Oh yeah.
Oh man. The second one not so good, but the first one, that might need to happen sometime this month. Let's get caught up on the news of the last 24 hours. DC United spent approximately $750,000 to acquire a player in a transfer that they let walk on a free a year or so ago. Bill Hamid is back in DC on their 3-year deal using TAM. Stephen Goff had reported it would be a transfer fee of approximately $750,000 to reacquire Bill Hamid. That's some interesting business there, DC United. FC Midland has to be pretty happy about the business that they did, picking up a player on a free, then getting, I'm assuming, some kind of a loan fee, and then getting $750,000 from the club that let the player walk on a free. I can't keep saying this enough.
Mm-hmm.
They let somebody leave and then paid nearly $1 million to bring them back. Why didn't you just re-sign him to a new contract?
Mm-hmm.
You could have saved yourself $1 million. You could have given him the $1 million. You could have actually gotten more out of it. It's just whatever. Anyway, DC United is doing weird things.
Mazel tov, DC United. You paid to have something that you could have kept.
Yeah, it's baffling. There's no logic. Logic is happening with Atlanta United in that they pick up Emerson Hyndman on an official transfer. It's done. He's under contract through 2022. And lots of great reports out there from Doug Robertson, from Felipe Cardenas, from Dirty South Soccer. Chris Furmeister had a quote that I thought really summed this up. It was a good pull from the archives from Jeff Lorenowitz talking about Hyndman and what he's done. He said he's not a guy who takes over the game. He's not a guy that you hear a lot or takes a ton of shots. He's a quiet guy. That's also kind of symbolic of how he plays. He just finds those tight spaces. You don't know he's there, and then he turns and finds somebody in the attack. He's done really well. Sounds a lot like somebody that Lorenowitz goes on to compare Hyndman to. Mm-hmm. He's a bit like Darlington in that he isn't really a front half or back half of the field player. He's really in between, and he has linked up our team very well. He continues to do those things. He's strong late in game, whether we have a lead or the other team leaves openings. He seems to be stronger and better in those late situations. It's a valuable thing to have. Brilliant pickup, in my opinion. I think Hyndman has the potential to be a U.S. national team player. I think the move from Fulham to Bournemouth looked good on paper when it happened. It didn't work out, and it stunted his growth, and it stunted his development. He can get back to the level that I think a lot of people had him pegged for with time here. And he's going to get time, and I think he's going to get role to do that with Darlington Nagbe moving on to Columbus. Is Hyndman a direct replacement? No, he's not the exact same. But you hear Jeff Lorenowitz in this quote, and you see the comparisons. He's similar. He has different characteristics. I think probably Hyndman's a little bit more comfortable in the final third in making things happen for himself than Nagbe is. Hyndman will take that on himself. But they have a lot of similarities. And if you go back in Hyndman's career and you look at his time at Rangers and you look at his time at Fulham, in Atlanta last year he was used a little bit more higher up in the team because you had Nagbe. His time in Europe, he played deeper. So can he drop into that spot? If you go into the season and you have Hyndman replacing Nagbe, you have Lorenowitz still as the 6 right now, or Remedi if he beats him out to win that time, and you do what we saw in the postseason where it was Pity Martinez in front of them. Can Hyndman replace Nagbe in that sense? I think he can. Now, it's not going to be the exact same, but I think he can replace him and give you everything that Darlington did. Some differences, of course, but I think he can give you a lot of that. So felt like a no-brainer. This was a move we expected to happen when the loan deal went down because of what Atlanta gave up to Dallas to get his rights. No-brainer to pick him up on a permanent.
Yeah, and for me, I've always thought of Emerson as same but different, if that makes any sense, when it comes to what everyone is talking about where Darlington Nagbe is concerned in his skill set. So same but different, and I know that Emerson wants to have the opportunity to prove his worth and prove the faith that Atlanta United has had in him from bringing him from Bournemouth in the first place. So, from day one, we figured that this was going to be the end game because you wouldn't have invested all the money that you did to get him here if you didn't have a longer-term idea. So, glad that this was finally finalized to be from the Department of Redundancy Department.
New England Revolution opened their training ground yesterday to the public, and Bruce Arena talked about the commitment of the Kraft family and building this really nice training facility that the Revs have never had access to anything like this. But he also talked about the hope of bringing in another designated player in 2020. The Revs are the team, in my opinion, that can make that jump from the back of the playoff picture or outside the playoff picture to top four and hosting a playoff game. If they add a designated player to what they have coming back, this is a team to keep an eye on because, you look at the New England Revolution right now. You've got Matt Turner in goal, one of the better goalkeepers in the league. You've got a back line at the moment you would expect it to be Alexander Butner, Andrew Farrell, Antonio De La Mea, Brandon Bye. Butner's new. You could play DeJuan Jones there. We saw DeJuan Jones play some left back. I think you bring in Butner to start. You don't have any depth behind that, and that's going to be a question, but that's not a designated player signing to add to that unless you're going to put one of these guys as your depth. In the midfield, centrally, you've got Wilfred Zahibo, you've got Luis Caicedo, you've got Scott Caldwell, who's played a lot of matches in this league. You've got a young talent in Isaac Anking, who will probably play a lot with the Revs too in League One. Out wide on the left, you have the Ecuadorian DeLorean, one of the great nicknames in the league, Christian Pinilla. You have DeJuan Jones as well, had a good rookie season. You have Tajon Buchanan, who had a good rookie season on the right. You need a right winger, potentially, unless you do what they did late last season and Carlos Heel tucks in from the right side to give Brandon Bye that room to bomb forward as a right back. You've got in midfield, attacking-wise, Heel, Diego Fagundes, who can play anywhere across the front line. You have two young players in Damian Rivera and Nicolas Firmino, who will probably, a lot of their time will be with Revolution 2. Up top, you've got Gustavo Bo, Teal Bunbury. Bo can drop in to a kind of number 10-ish kind of role. We saw that a lot in the playoff match, especially against the Revs. Bunbury can score you double-digit goals for you in the league. I think he has that capability. You have Justin Rennicks as well, who had a good U20 World Cup, a good U20 run for the U.S., a player who might be a little bit further ahead than the League One team. He might get some time with the first team and be a guy that's the first option off the bench. So you've got a great core. You've got a good lineup. You've got a lineup today that is strong. If you go 4-4-2 with that back four we talked about, with Zahibo and Caicedo in the empty bucket midfield, with Pinilla on the left, with Carlos Heel on the right, tucking inside, and Bo and Bunbury up top, that's pretty much what they ended the season with, and they were very good in the second half of the year under Arena. You add a designated player talent to that, and my guess is you're looking at a winger who can play on the right side. Because if you take that and you turn it to a 4-2-3-1 with Zahibo and Caicedo behind Carlos Heel, with Pinilla and his speed on the left, with designated player right winger on the right side, and Bo up top with Bunbury coming off the bench, you're potentially a top 4 team in the East, maybe even higher. So if they're going to make that investment and they get the right winger to complement this group, keep an eye on the New England Revolution. That's a team you got to watch because they're bringing a lot of continuity back, and Bruce Arena is going to get a preseason with them. So that's the Revs. Orlando City's not sitting around either. They got the defensive midfielder deal done on Andres Perea, the player in Colombia, born in Tampa. They got him on loan. The Colombian reporting yesterday had an option to buy on that. I would assume that's the case. They also signed a homegrown attacking midfielder, David Lorea from NC State. Probably going to spend at least the first half of the season with OCB, but you never know with guys coming out of college. Can he make that jump quicker? Find out. The thing you have to know about Oscar Pareja is he's a manager who will not be afraid of playing young guys. If they show that they're capable, Lorea will play. But I think Andres Perea will definitely play because that holding midfield right now for Orlando is barren. They let everybody go. They didn't bring really much back from last year. Sebastian Mendez is the guy. Now, you're expecting Mauricio Pereira to be your number 10 and start a lot. So if you go in with Perea, Mendez, and Mauricio Pereira, you've got a pretty good trio if you're going to go 4-2-3-1, and we'll have to see what Pereira does. There's still a lot of questions about what Orlando looks like, but that answers some of your midfield. And see what else they do. I mean, they're not a playoff level team yet for me, but you make a couple other smart moves, maybe they can. Maybe they can pull that off. I thought they should have been this year, and that's probably what cost O'Connor his job.
I'm looking forward to seeing a full year under Bruce Arena in New England with all of these additions and all these ideas and everything. The vibe is definitely different in New England than it has been in the past, and I want to see how the momentum carries into a full season with Bruce Arena in charge. And then with Orlando, once again, we know what Oscar Pareja can do. We've seen it in Dallas. We've seen it as he's built things and created things from the top down when it comes to teams and activities and development and all these kinds of things. And I know that I will continue to be the resident negative, but I'm just looking. I know that the relationship with Luis Muzzi plays into this. That I'm hoping that he's given the patience to build in the same way that he was building in Dallas, and I want to see Orlando City do well, and I think that Pareja can do that. But he's just got to be given the time to make it happen.
Well, I'm going to smash your skepticism again in a different way, because Muzzi being there is the obvious reason why he's going to be given time. But I think they were patient with everybody but Adrian Heath. Jason Christ lost the team. They had to make the move on when they moved on from Christ. O'Connor got a year and a half. Would you have any hope that if O'Connor was back for 2020, they would be better? Oh, they upgraded. And I would imagine that they had a pretty good inkling that they were going to be able to pull this off. So I think the only time they were impatient at the manager was Adrian Heath. I thought they fired him too early. Outside of that, they got it right with Christ. They got it right with O'Connor. So I don't even buy the patience thing when it comes to Orlando. They just got to be better.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. And Pareja's got success in this league. He had success in Colorado. He had great success in Dallas. I think he's going to get it done. I don't expect it to be overnight because he doesn't have a lot to work with. But it's two levels of success. And I disagree with the strong no statement because I think Orlando can make the playoffs in 2020. And that would be successful. That would be a huge success for them because they've never been there. Can they be a title contender in 2020? No. I think there's too much to deal with. But the other element of what Pareja is going to bring you is not going to happen in 2020. It's going to happen in like 2023 and 2024 after you have taken the nuts and bolts of an academy and actually put the pieces together to produce talent. That's where Pareja will have his strength. And that's what he really needs to tuck into early in 2020 is get that academy right, make whatever tweaks he can in midstream in this academy season. Create the plan for your academy director to follow out in the summer as you're building to the next academy season. Because remember, the academy year runs like school year. It's fall to spring. So they'll really be able to make changes going into the 2020 fall season. But you have to identify everything now. So where Pareja can spend some time on the academy, it will be valuable if he can do that early on. And that's where his long-term impact will be. But I do think they can be a playoff team next year. I really do. They need a little bit more to do that first. And we'll see what Oscar Pareja and Luis Muzzi can bring to the fore. A couple other bits of news before we take a quick break. Matt Pence reported yesterday that Jeremy Ebobisse suffered a lateral meniscus tear during USU-23 camp. Surgery is expected for today. He'll be out 6 to 8 weeks. That is going to limit his availability early in the year because he's going to be playing catch-up. 8 weeks from today, that puts you, 2.5 weeks before the season starts?
Yeah.
And you're going to be coming from knee surgery, and you're going to have to catch up on preseason. And you don't have Brian Fernandez anymore in Portland. This move, I think, makes it a priority for them to go get a top striker. And I don't know what kind of money they're working with. Fernandez is off your books, so you're going to have a designated player spot there. I don't know how the financial recouping is going to go with Fernandez. Remember, there was talk about a lawsuit with his former club Necaxa because there were reports that he had issues off the field and failed drug tests that were not reported by Necaxa during the transfer. And they might be able to get some of that money back, but what are they going to have to work with right now? Because they need a forward. And if you're going to go into the beginning of the season with Ebobisse, who isn't necessarily your number one option as a number 9 anyway, and now no Fernandez, Portland's got to go find a number 9 in the Mercado del Pases. They've got to. A couple other bits real quick. Real Salt Lake, they paid a transfer fee, low 5 figures, not a big one, but they paid a transfer fee to OKC Energy for Trinidad and Tobago national team player Alvin Jones. Love seeing these types of moves. We haven't seen enough guys move from USL teams to MLS teams. There's a gap in talent. We've talked about it many times. You see it with the teams that are related where guys make that jump, and it takes them a minute. You see some guys make that jump quicker. Can Alvin Jones be that? Maybe. But I love to see an independent USL team get a player, develop a player, and get something back for him. Even if it's not a huge amount, it's still something, and it still shows that there's value in the development process. So love that this is happening. Hope we see more of it. We've seen it with USL Championship and USL League One. Now to see MLS and USL Championship. Good development here because there is talent there that can make the jump. Anthony Jackson Hamel signed a new contract with Montreal. He will be back in the fold for the Impact. Victor Rodriguez, not really a surprise, announced that he is not returning to the Seattle Sounders. Looks like he's headed back to Spain. And another not surprise, Sebastian Salcedo, Bofo Salcedo, has officially signed with Pumas of Liga MX. He left RSL on a free. Don't know that situation because he had left the club. He'd come back before. I don't know if they had a handshake type of agreement that the club would let him walk. I really don't know. I don't think it's the exact same kind of situation as Hamid in DC where that felt just more like incompetence in managing the situation. This one feels like everybody is pretty comfortable with how it went down, so I'm wondering if there had been handshake agreements behind the scenes on allowing something like this to happen. But talented player in Salcedo, he's just been very, very inconsistent.
We have questions.
Okay, we're going to hold those.
Yes.
We're going to hold questions.
That's why I figured I would present them at this moment.
Present the questions. We will talk about them during the break. You will hear about them after we return.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky and Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back, Soccer Down here, December 10th, Tuesday Thoughts edition of the show. We have thoughts. You have thoughts. Let's share some thoughts.
All right, so here we go. Natasha is begging our forgiveness since she's not able to listen live this morning. She says, ignore me if this has already been covered. But why is the first Concacaf game being held at Kennesaw State and not Mercedes-Benz?
It's the scheduling. And Doug Robertson broke the news this morning. It's not a surprise because you knew some of the events that were already scheduled at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. These are legacy events that, go all the way back to the Atlanta Fulton County Stadium days. Now, I have to go back and dig into this, and I might actually do it because I'm a history nerd like this, and I'm kind of curious about it. When the first time Monster Jam and Supercross happened in Atlanta. I know Supercross goes back to the early 80s at Fulton County Stadium.
Oh, it goes into the 70s, mid-70s.
Yeah, okay. I'm
because
not quite
I remember,
that
old. And for me, I remember an incident involving a local sports anchor.
Oh, no.
Who, when it came to Super Bowl of motocross, he was running his mouth about how, these guys aren't athletes. It's got to be easy. And what you did, you would finish the last Super Bowl of motocross race, and what you would do is you would go up the hill and you would go through the football uprights, which were preserved on the grass at Fulton County Stadium.
Oh, no.
That was like the big ceremonial thing, and that's what you do. You win the last heat, you win the last race, you go through the goalposts, and that was the photo op. So this local sports anchor is running his mouth about how it's not a sport and all this kind of stuff. Even I could do the jump through the goalpost.
No, you couldn't.
So he goes through the whole setup and everything, and he's there that night, and they're there to shoot it and everything, and he's got all of the gear on, and he's on the bike. He guns the bike. He falls off the back of the bike. The bike goes up the hill and through the goalposts on its own.
Well, that's probably good because I thought he was going to end up impaling himself on a goalpost or something. Like, it's probably good that he fell off at the beginning.
Yeah, he literally just slipped right off the back, and the bike went through the goalpost on its own.
Yeah, that's probably the safest thing that could have happened to the guy. I've been to Supercross at the Georgia Dome before. I used to listen to the Jason Ellis show on SiriusXM, and Ellis got deep into that stuff and would have different guys on the show. And was able to get some tickets through a partnership and go for free, and it was a fun event. Like, it was fun. The heats and then the final race, like, it was a lot of fun. But this is the Supercross portion of it has been in Atlanta since the mid-'70s. I mean, it's a big deal. It's not a little small thing. And if you don't know that world, I understand how you'd be like, well, why? It's big money, big sponsors, big events. Like, money is to be made here. These guys make a lot of money, and the owners of these teams make a lot of money, and it's a big series. So I don't know Monster Jam well at all. I know it happens. I know it's been going on in Atlanta for a long, long time. I don't know that world at all, so I really can't help you. I do know they sell a ton of tickets to that thing.
Yep.
And I know that I don't know if they transition from the Fulton County Stadium days to the Dome in terms of a contractual transition. I don't know that part, but I know, because it's been reported by Doug, that they transitioned from the Dome to Mercedes-Benz Stadium in legacy contracts.
Yes.
So they're not events that you can move around and say no to. Like, they're locked in. I don't know how long they're locked in. They're locked in. And they're locked into a certain time frame in the calendar, too, because I believe Monster Jam has a touring schedule, and there's a competitive element to it. I don't know it. Supercross has a schedule that I think their season starts in like early January out in California, and this is one of the early season events. So I believe the Supercross event is on the 29th of February, and I think Monster Jam is the weekend before, because you can share setup with all the dirt and stuff you're bringing in. So you're going to book them around the same time. So you're taking up time in the month, and you're going to take at least a full week. And I don't know how many days it takes to go from Supercross on the 29th. I mean, you have a home game the next weekend. Obviously, you'll be fine for that, but I don't know how soon after you could have an event. You're not going to be able to play a soccer match in between the two because of the amount of cost and time and everything going into it. And you have practice sessions, and you have all kinds of things that go on. So it's impossible to do. And it's something that you know about. And again, I don't know how long that legacy contract is, but these events are booked, and they bring a lot of money to the stadium, and that's how it goes.
1977 apparently is the furthest back that I can go involving Supercross at Fulton County Stadium.
Okay. Well, it's I don't know, because I haven't been to one in a while, and I don't know how they've drawn at Mercedes-Benz, but Atlanta United Motagua is not maybe the most appealing match. We know the Atlanta United fan base. We know what Atlanta United fans are going to bring to that. It's not going to be a full house building, but I think it would be a full house in the lower configuration. I don't know what Supercross draws at the Benz. I don't know what Monster Jam draws at the Benz, but I don't think they're going to lose money by this match going to Kennesaw. Limits you. Oh, you wish you had another option. We've talked about it every year. Georgia Tech, it's just cost prohibitive, and I don't even know if it's possible at this point to do it for a one-off because of the configuration of Bobby Dodd Stadium. And Turner Field right now is not in play because of the turf. Could that change at some point? I guess. I think it's wide enough. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's wide enough. People have said it's wide enough. It appears to be wide enough.
It'd be a tight fit.
I don't think it'd be that tight. I mean, I don't know if it'd be a full 75 wide, but it'd be definitely 70, and I think more than 70. It'd be tight in the corners, but I don't think I don't think it's impossible. And it might not be. It wouldn't be 120. I think it'd be more like 110. Looking at it from like a Google map and looking at it overhead and trying to kind of do math as you look at a game there, I think you could probably get something like 72 by 110, which is fine. It's smaller than the Benz, but not as small as Bobby Dodd would be. I think you'd get more of a field there than at Bobby Dodd. But the turf right now, I mean, it's stitched for football, so that would have to change. And outside of that, there's not another venue. Kennesaw's a perfect venue for soccer. It's as good as it gets. The field had some issues last year at this time. They did a lot of different things during the season that we were there for Atlanta United too. I thought it played very well at the end. After a little bit of a bumpy run in the middle, they had some problems with the hybrid field that they did. They replaced it, and it was much better at the end of the season after they replaced it when it kind of started having issues in the middle of the year.
Shiva, do we always play the away games first and then home games when we play in CONCACAF Champions League? Yes, if your team is in pot 1.
Yes. Yeah, in the round of 16 you do. Beyond that, I don't think it's not locked in for the MLS teams to be in that situation. But in the first round, yeah, because the pot 1 teams are the higher seed.
Tafka wants to know, and I think that this verb is the official term. He says, is there a chance that the legacy events could be scooched up into earlier February in future years in new contracts?
New contracts, yeah. I think that's what it would have to be. I think you are kind of locked in, again, because you're talking about a series. Like, it's not like booking a concert that's a one-off, even though a concert tour has a lot of complication. Like, this is part of a scheduled season for these events. So stuff gets booked years and years out in advance. So, yeah, it would probably have to be a contract thing. And if you could, cool, and you could do that in years where you're not in play for a Super Bowl, I mean, that would be the only thing that would really mix you up in that time frame in the year. You couldn't go a whole lot earlier because you could have Falcons NFC Championship through the end of January. So, I mean, you might be able to move it up a week or two, which could give you enough room to do it. But yeah, it's going to take, new contracts.
Swixter, as a public service, has posted the Monster Jam national schedule to coordinate.
See, there you go. If you're interested now after us talking about Monster Jam, there you go. Man, I know they draw big crowds for that thing. That's one that I never got into. I've watched a little bit of it, and I've tried to understand the competitive element to it. Like, I think there's judges. Like, isn't there a judging portion?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, how quickly you do something, how much you crush, and how artistic you are when you do it.
Yeah, it's the artistic how you do it part. Is I'm like, what, really? Okay. I mean, Supercross
2 wheels.
Is a race.
Are you on your side? Are you on the rear wheels? Or are you going in nose first? Are you doing it with a backflip? Those kinds of things.
Okay, cool. If that's your thing, that's your thing. Supercross is easy. It's a race. Like, I get it. I understood pretty quickly. All right, you got the heats, and then you've got like a wild card heat where your best finishers who didn't qualify for the final race got a chance to go, and that was super competitive. And then I think it was in the wild card one, or maybe even in the championship race, the one that I went to, where somebody, like, the little bit I know about it, it looked like a dirty move where they bumped a guy coming around to turn and knocked him off the bike, and then he, I think, collided with somebody, went down, and they nearly had a fight. I was kind of hoping for the fight. Didn't happen.
Yeah, really? I mean, get a little Tony Stewart, Kurt Busch action going.
Yeah, I think it's more than that because, it's a little bit easier to hop off a bike and take somebody's helmet off and sock them in the face.
No, I mean, for me, Super Bowl of motocross, it was Jim Pomeroy and Hurricane Hannah and the goalpost jump. Yeah, that's
pretty cool. I haven't seen that one. I can't remember the guy's name that was big at the time. I don't know if he still is. Red Bull paid a bunch of money to sponsor this guy, and Red Bull puts a lot of money into Supercross. This guy was like the young star of Supercross at the time. And I think he was involved. I think he was the one who pulled the dirty move and nearly started the fight.
Mr. Green, our resident Falcoholic, wants to know what takes a team like New England such a long time to get new training grounds when they've been in MLS since its inception.
Honestly, it's like we've talked about. I think it's the fear because Robert Kraft went through a time frame where it wasn't sure if the league was going to survive. So I think he was extremely conservative in spending. And when your NFL friend, Arthur Blank, blows you out of the water and shows you that, yes, you can make money if you do it the right way, I think Robert Kraft says, oh, okay, I like to make money. Let's do this. And this is what happens. Challenges, too, and every market has its own. And, New England is a little unique in that they're not in the city center in Boston. They're out in Foxborough, and Kraft kind of has his own thing out there. So there has been some back and forth about them building a stadium in Boston, and it still gets talked about from time to time. where were they going to put a training ground? Maybe they held it off until they knew a little bit more. And this makes you think that, hey, they're putting down roots. This is what they're going to do. And when you look at the Revs historically, attendance-wise, when they've been good, they've drawn well at Gillette. And you've watched games from there, and it's looked good, and it sounded good. Is it ideal? Is it as good of a setup for a 40,000 person crowd as Mercedes-Benz is? No, it wasn't designed that way when it was built, but it's good. It can be fine. And from a financial standpoint, you're not losing a dime playing there. That's why the Revs play there. So if you draw 10 or if you draw 40, it doesn't affect how much, you're spending to use the place. So if they put a good product on the field, and second half of the season was good, you saw the crowds pick up, they commit to spending more, and they add players that get their fan base excited, they'll be just fine. And this training ground's going to help them with all of that. So I'm glad he's finally spending, and I think some of it is just getting over that fear of, this isn't the MLS of the year 2002. Those days are gone. You can stop being afraid.
Ricky Ricardo says he zoned out for a sec, but the Falcons got eliminated from the playoffs, so no conflict, right?
No, nobody said there was a conflict. What I was saying, and maybe I confused people when I said it, when you're moving the schedule around for Supercross and Monster Jam and such, you can't move it into January because again, you're not scheduling these a few days out. You're scheduling these years out. And you would expect that the Falcons will get back to an NFC championship at some point and they could host it. So you can't lock an event like this in before the NFC championship dates in years. And the NFL has that mapped out far in advance too, so you know where those are. You're not moving it into January. You can't move these events into January. Could you move them up a week? Maybe 2 weeks? Sure. But that's about it.
Let's see. Also on the board this morning, there's an anniversary that I'm going to get into toward the end of the show, so that would be one of the last things that I get into. Bartimus Prime, he says the Rose Bowl has hosted 2 World Cup finals, but 1 men's final, 1 women's final. Also the old Rasunda Stadium in Stockholm. Azteca is one of 3 stadiums to host 2 men's finals. Others are the Olympiastadion in Berlin, significantly renovated, and the Maracanã.
I did not know that the Olympiastadion. I guess I was thinking because of that significant renovation. I wasn't even considering it the same. Maracanã, I should have remembered that from 50 and 14. Although 50, you could make the argument that they haven't, because the way the finals were determined in 1950 was really unique. They didn't have a final per se. They had a group stage. They had 4 group winners go into a round robin, and the winner of the round robin was the champion. It just so happened that it came down to the game in the final game between Brazil and Uruguay that decided it, but it wasn't actually a World Cup final. So if you want to get into semantics, we can, but I'm with Bart on that one. I'll go back and look at the Berlin one. I forgot about that. I knew they had renovated it. I was actually thinking it was a different venue altogether. And good shout on the men's and women's finals. Rose Bowl and Stockholm, definitely. But Azteca is one of those special venues in the world. Even with these, you're talking about a very small group. And just looking at it from my end of things, to play a match in a quarterfinal in a competition that is one of my favorite times of the year, period. Way before Atlanta United existed, I was all in on CONCACAF Champions League, and I mean the matches in the mid-2000s with Houston and Pachuca were some of the best that MLS teams have played in ever. Very special. So for Atlanta United to be in that level of competition in a venue like this, and just from a personal standpoint, to be in the same venue that Argentina won the World Cup in, and Diego Maradona starred in that final, and that final was really the game that cemented me being the soccer fan that I am. I'd seen the World Cup that summer and seen a few games, The semifinal was a big deal with Argentina beating Belgium, but it was that final, and it's one of the best World Cup finals of all time. It was an amazing match. But to be in that venue is pretty cool. So if Atlanta gets there and that happens, that is pretty cool, all those things coming together.
Ricky Ricardo with a question. He says he wanted to know what our thoughts were on East Atlanta FC and the growth of USL League Two.
I'll take it a step further. I love the growth of youth clubs building senior teams because it gives them something. It's not unique as much anymore, but gives them something that can help their development pathway because it doesn't have to be tied into 22-year-olds playing in this team. It can be their 17, 18-year-olds in the summer playing in this team. And to have SSA do it, and now RISA, because that's East Atlanta FC is run by Rockdale Youth Soccer. And if you go back, Rockdale Youth Soccer is originally where the Georgia Revolution started and played their games, and it was under the purview of the youth club. And when they had a DOC change, they ended up at that time moving on from it. They didn't want to do a competitive summer league team. The Revolution changed ownership. They moved over to Henry County. And now, a few years later, RISA getting back into the game and doing it through League Two. I love that you have, these options on the south side of town. You've got, southeast, if you want to go by the name. East Atlanta FC, I don't know if I buy the name just yet, because I've always looked at Conyers as very different, but okay. I get the branding. I understand it. I want to see how they flesh it out. So you have a team in League Two there. You have an NPSL team in Henry County in the Georgia Revolution. You have a League Two team in Peachtree City with Peachtree City MOBA. That's awesome. From somebody who grew up on the South Side and didn't have many opportunities when I was growing up on the South Side. You had like one classic team that started in Clayton County when I was really young. I didn't know about Lightning at that time. They were a few years old at that point, got really good in the 90s. You just didn't have many places to play. Rockdale got better, but then most top players moved out of Rockdale and played other places. It was the same with top players out of Clayton and Henry County. To have all these opportunities now, it's going to strengthen those clubs that are attached to it. You've got the Revolution building stuff in Henry County with youth, and you've got them fielding 3 teams in the ADASL right now with a lot of young players playing in those. That's a really cool, different way of doing it. You have Rockdale and MOBA, Rockdale, a historic club, who has added this component to it, and MOBA, a new club that has used the top team to build youth out underneath it. You've got different approaches. But what it does is it creates more opportunities for players. And that's always the most important thing for me, is if you give players an opportunity to develop at an appropriate level, you're going to have better players across the board. And I completely subscribe to this theory that if you raise the level of the base, so when you have more League Two teams, when you have more NPSL teams, when you have more UPSL teams and Gulf Coast Premier and all the different types of leagues, ADASL is part of this conversation too. When you have all those different types of leagues, and they're all at different levels, and the level can range from team to team, it can range from league to league, it can range from region to region. When you have those opportunities for places to players to play, you're increasing the overall level of the game. Over time, when you increase the overall level of the game, and especially from the bottom, your best players get better because they're pushed more. You have an element, and I think this is probably the same in all sports, where you have certain players that are just, they're special, and you can make them better, but they're special players. They were born as special players. If they're put in the right environment, they're going to be special players. I think in the past, American soccer has put too much resource, both time and money, towards the very small percentage of the top players in the country, as opposed to everybody else growing and pushing that top even higher. I think the growth of League Two, the growth of NPSL, the growth of all these different leagues and places for young adults and teenagers in increasing numbers to play and be tested and develop and get better. Everything's getting better, because if you watch even my 2 years doing, Oglethorpe games for D3 NCAA, night and day, better and better talent. The freshmen who came in this season, better and better talent. You look at NPSL games from when we started the South region in 2008 to today, night and day, absolute night and day. It's just a completely different level. We fielded a team in 2008 with Atlanta FC that had a lot of veteran guys from the local Latino leagues. It get run off the park today because the level is so much better and faster and younger than it's ever been. League Two, better and better and better. League One this year on the pro side at the beginning pro level, good competition. I mean, the final with Greenville and North Texas was a good match. We watched a lot of different matches this season. We're chatting about it back and forth, with our SDH crew, and Tormenta, Greenville, Red Wolves, so many really good teams and good players that now you're seeing move up the ladder. Having League Two grow is going to create another place for players to grow and move up that ladder. The ladder gets longer because in this way, if League Two and NPSL and everything else grows, the ladder gets deeper. And that's the important thing, is you have more quality to choose from with the growth of League Two. I love it. And I love that in Atlanta now, you have Atlanta United, you have Atlanta United 2. That's top flight, and that's second division. You don't have a League One team in town, but you do have NISA, which is sanctioned as Division 3, and you have Atlanta SC. Okay? Then you get to Division 4, which it doesn't really exist because it's not professional, but you have League 2 teams in Peachtree City and now in Rockdale County, and you have SSA, which is going to eventually be in Cobb, but they're going to play in Dallas, Georgia first year. This is just in the immediate metro area. You have NPSL with Georgia Revolution. You've got a ton of options. If you're a young, talented player, you've got a ton of different options. You have things to aspire to. This is great. It's only going to raise the level even higher.
And at the same time, if you're someone who enjoys the sport, wants to see it succeed from a financial basis and a growth basis, you have all these different places where you can sample the sport and grow it financially and be a part of that growth by going to catch a match, by going to do all these different things in all these different locations, buy the gear, go see a match, support build an athlete, all these kinds of things, and all these different levels to be a part of growing the sport. I think that's another cool aspect of it too, is that you can be a fan of Atlanta United as much as you can, East Atlanta and Tormenta and Red Wolves and Greenville Triumph and Greenville and FC. And so there are a bunch of different ways now that you can support the sport, embrace the sport, and help it grow, even if you're not an athlete.
Yeah, and that's the thing about, I think, in general, how the game has grown in this part of the country. And it's not the case everywhere. You get a lot of antagonism between different levels and people who want to fight about their level all the time and get mad if other soccer entities, pop up and things are at different levels. The different levels, in my opinion, are different worlds. I mean, I enjoy games at all different levels. I enjoy an ADASL game. I enjoy an MLS game. I enjoy the game for what it is, and I understand the levels for what they are. It's different. I mean, it's like we tell people about Atlanta United too. It's not Atlanta United. It's not the same level of play. It's a different environment. It's different. Doesn't mean it's not worth your time. And that's what's cool about it. And it's the same with Georgia Revolution. It's the same with East Atlanta FC and Peachtree City MOBA and the SSA team that's launching, because it's even more intimate at those levels. And as we've talked about, I really believe that for some people, they're going to like the game and they're going to be more passionate about the game at a lower level. Because there are people who, from a music perspective, like going to see a band at a small club as opposed to seeing a band at, at Lakewood or at, State Farm Arena. That's okay. That's cool. I just don't think there has to be the fighting back and forth about, oh, well, that's really bad for the game. No, it's good. All of this is good. Atlanta United's success has created an environment that has fostered this growth because you didn't have this 10 years ago. You had the Silverbacks and you had Atlanta FC in 2008. 2009 and 10, you had Atlanta FC. You didn't have the Silverbacks. You had Georgia Revolution start up in Conyers at that time. You had an NPSL team with Saturn for 1 year in 2009. That was it. You had the Silverbacks come back, and Atlanta FC partnered with them to become the reserves. Then you had the Revs. And that's it. And now you're going to go into 2020 with, at all these various levels, so many more options and so many more teams, and teams in all parts of the metro area. That's not even getting into a Tormenta. That's not even getting into a Dalton Red Wolves. That's not even getting into that stuff. It's very, very cool to see. And all of the growth and all of the different things are good. Doesn't mean you have to love every team the same way, but it's a good thing that this is happening. I think we stunned John. Maybe John is fighting with his phone or the gremlin again. There he is. He's back.
There he is. Yeah,
he kicked Spike off the phone again. Those gremlins keep coming back.
Well, it did rain. It did rain here at the house.
It's true.
One of the last topics of the morning that has come across the timeline a lot, Shiva and Ricky Ricardo posting video of same. Today was the anniversary of the parade, and they wanted to know memories of everyone who is listening and or watching and watching their videos and things like that. So memories from the parade. What are yours?
Being in it was nuts.
Yes.
Absolutely nuts. I think I've told the story where, people got really bent out of shape about the report that came out that Arthur Blank had talked to the mayor about a parade. People are, you can't do that ahead of time. Look, you have to do that ahead of time. These things don't happen overnight. You can't plan something to say, we just won a championship. Can we have a parade in a couple days? There's a lot of different things that have to happen. You got permits, you got security, you got police, you got all kinds of things going on to make that happen. So there has to be some planning done. I saw the reports like everybody else saw the reports. I didn't want to know anything about it. And I told Mike, and we have this conversation about things all the time when, we have to do some level of planning. I try to keep planning ahead in these types of scenarios to an absolute minimum because I take nothing for granted about Atlanta United or any team winning. It's okay, I know what could be coming. I have a vague idea when you're in a tournament format. We've talked about going to the Estadio Azteca. That's not booked. You have to win games to get there first, so you can't take it for granted. So in anything about the final last year, I didn't want to know anything that was happening afterwards. I said, look, all I want to know is what we're doing tonight. We had a game plan for the post-game show, win or lose. We had a couple different ideas, and that was it. And I was like, I don't want to know anything else. So in the conclusion to the game, when Mike talks about the parade, that was literally the first, I knew details about it. So the fact that, we were involved in it in any way was just craziness. And the fact that the radio station committed the time to broadcast from the parade, both from the celebration at the end, but actually, we had a setup in the car with Mike and I when we could keep a reception going on the air in the parade. It was nuts. And so many people like coming up because you had the buses and Fox Sports South had a truck in front of us, and then we were at the back. And so many people, like once the parade turned into a march, which was amazing, it stopped being like everybody on the sides and everybody just joined in and started walking with us. And so many people like coming up to the car to say hi to Mike and I. It's like, we just talk on the radio about the games. Like the players are up there, but people were coming up to us and just being around all of that craziness, you know, is nuts. I had never broadcasted from a parade before, and I don't remember in 95 when the Braves won if there was broadcasting from the parade going on, but it was pretty cool to get a chance to do it, and it was cool to see everybody celebrate it on a miserable, cold, rainy day.
No one cared.
No, and it was a great crowd, and yes, people will try to take shots at the size of the parade crowd. Whoop-de-frickin-do. Really? That's where people are going to try to throw shade? Get out of here with that nonsense. It was amazing to see how many people took their time to come out on short notice and be part of the celebration, and it's something I'll never forget.
And for me, since it's during this week and I'm doing other things on the high school football side, and every computer that could dial up any kind of live coverage of the parade as we're doing our preps for the high school football championships was watching the parade. I had the Sports South coverage on. Other folks had local news coverage on. But yeah, any computer in our section in the sports office had the parade on, and we would sit there. It's like you do something, you turn, you watch the parade. You do something else, you turn and watch the parade. And for me, it was just getting a case of the giggles because of a parade turning into a procession, turning into the Jeff Larunowitz sign, calling out for individuals to assist him in his quest for liquidity and making sure that he was properly hydrated. That was a ridiculous
description of what that sign said.
Mm-hmm. He wanted to be properly hydrated during the procession.
He wanted beer. The man wanted a beer. There's nothing wrong with wanting a beer in a parade.
Absolutely not. Nothing wrong with that.
You don't have to dance around it. The man wanted a beer, and he deserved a beer, and he got a beer. Good for him.
And I give him full credit for MacGyvering the sign the way that he was able to, finding whatever cardboard from wherever it was given. I mean, fantastic mental acuity there by Big Red to make sure that he got his beer. Good resources.
Cool. Yes, and it was very cool that people brought beer for him.
Yes, but now it was a tremendous day, and it's a day that I think a lot of folks won't forget for different reasons. And there's always that reason that we each have about that day and what it meant and what it meant to the city, what it meant to the sport, what it meant to soccer in general. And now just a lot of different ways, but it was a very cool day. And thanks to everybody who has shared their video from the morning and their thoughts from the morning on.
Yeah, there's going to be lots and lots of that over the rest of the day. So make sure you're following all the usual suspects on social media. Should be some pretty cool stuff coming out of it. And you start looking ahead now. You know what is on the docket for the first two matches of the year, and you know what's on the docket for the first two matches of the MLS season. And you know what's looming in Club America. It's very exciting when you start to look ahead. So summing up the news of the day and the big things to keep an eye on the rest of the day. Doug Robertson reporting at the AJC. Atlanta United will host the Motagua Champions League match at Kennesaw State. Nothing on anything past that yet, so stay tuned. You do have, as people have pointed out, you do have Final Four preparations at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I don't know if it will directly affect that Club America match if you get there. I don't know time frames of any of that just yet. So we will figure that out. But that's going to be a big game, and there's going to be a little bit different conversation about Atlanta Club America as there would be with Atlanta and Motagua. So stay tuned. All that will get worked out in time. You got to advance first. Alan Pulido is maybe the biggest name that is on the move right now. TUDN reported a little bit more information. San Jose was all in, but the money talks fell apart, and it could end up with Pulido going to Kansas City. That'd be a big move for the Western Conference because Kansas City was a team that should be around the top of the West, and they weren't last year. They had injuries. They didn't get enough goals. Pulido's going to solve the goals problem. He should anyway. So that's a move that could get done really at any time. So keep an eye on that one. The big story today in the soccer world is going to be Champions League. You've got some really interesting matchups in the UEFA Champions League. It starts at 12:55 with the group that is probably the tightest at this point, with Liverpool, Red Bull Salzburg, and Napoli all battling it out. One of them is going to go to the Europa League. It could be Liverpool if Red Bull Salzburg wins at home against Liverpool and Napoli beats Genk, who's already eliminated. If it's a three-way tie, Liverpool would be the odd man out. If Liverpool gets a result in Salzburg, then they go through. I know Nathan Pugh's throwing things right now. Liverpool should be able to get through Red Bull Salzburg, but Jesse Marsch, he's done really well with Salzburg, and this is a huge game. That'll be a fun one to watch. And then the games at 3 o'clock, there's some good ones there as well. The group with Chelsea is not decided yet. Chelsea should beat an already eliminated Lille, and we see where the rest of the group goes. The group with Inter Milan and Barca as well. No Messi for Barcelona. They've already locked up their spot. Inter's got to get a result. Some really interesting ones today. So all that is on TUDN. It is on, some of it's on TNT. It's on Bleacher Report Live. Lots of soccer to talk about. We'll be back tomorrow morning to talk about it a little bit more.
What you said.
Profound. I like it. Any final thoughts?
It's going to be, seriously, folks, watch your Champions League, have it on a monitor, minimize it so you don't get in trouble with your boss. Happy parade anniversary, everybody, and get ready for Motagua. So it's going to be a busy off season. Busy silly season is going to get even busier. And what was the terminology? What was the phrase that you gave?
What?
For transfer season? What was the phrase?
The Mercado del Pases.
That. It's going to be a busy Mercado, folks. But go enjoy lunch. We'll be back at it tomorrow.
Yes, and be on the lookout later this afternoon. We'll have a 1v1 with the new coach of Georgia Revolution. It's going to drop about 5 o'clock. So be on the lookout for that. We've got a few other 1v1s. We are efforting East Atlanta, and we will learn more about their League Two setup and everything else that pops off. Thanks to everybody for checking those out. It's a lot of fun to shine a light on that side of the game, and I'm glad that so many fans of Atlanta United and of MLS and the national team and the big stuff are learning about the grassroots stuff as well. And, thanks for checking it out. The numbers have been really good on those, and the feedback has been really good on those. We'll be doing more of them as we go, but we will be doing a little bit of that today, and we'll be back tomorrow morning to talk to you guys at 9 in the morning. Mucha plati, y'all.
Mucha plati.